Welcome to your Saturday morning show on TVC News Nigeria, The Platform. My name is Sam Omashe. At last, the much-awaited 2017 budget has been passed. 82 more Chibok girls have been freed by the Boko Haram sect. The Lagos at 50 celebration is in full gear. These are some of the issues that got Nigerians talking this week. It's going to be an interesting time on the program today. Let's tee off with an excerpt from my article published in the Nation newspaper entitled Song for Lagos. There lies Lagos, the city at the edge of the sea and always on edge. And the people are sometimes at sea. There I was, almost born, but grew up there. I saw it in the 1960s when I first understood the identity of things on Ijawe Street near Yaba. Since then, Lagos has been for me what it has been for Nigeria. It has known war and peace, the rugged and the brilliant, the elegant and brutal, the lover and the predator, the quick and the dead, the tyrant and olive branch. Lagos has been the cult of success. Achebe wrote on how unwilling he was to depart the place when the Igbo fled the pilgrim. Soyinka dedicated works to it. Ekwensi's Jaguar Nana and other works roiled there. The poor came to Lagos and rose to become a rose. The same city that birthed Olajumoke into a star also embraced a skinny lad like Nwankwo Kanu, whose feet rode Nigerian soccer into law. Lawyers like Ganifa Emi and Falana, they all boomed there. Delegiwa was later bombed into martyrdom. Even breakaway Ojukwu, they dreamed about it in Biafra. In the 1990s, the big city was agog with fury again. On June 12 we stand. A slogan reigned about Abiola. The man started as a dirt-poor kid who sang for bowls of amala. He became the nation's richest man and unparalleled philanthropist. Once on the side of the soldier, he waxed into a traitor to his past, morphing into the neon sign of democracy. His foes fell and rallied behind him. His fellow oppressors were aghast at his new incarnation. In Lagos, people dared and risked their lives. Rewane, Bagauda Kauto, Kudirat Abiola, etc. bubbled out of sight. Some almost died. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Soyinka, Bayo Onanuga, Nosai Gabriel, etc. had limbs and zeal to fight on. Tinubu came after Marwa. He laid the foundation for what is modern Lagos. Not the Jakonde austere worldview. He came with a fecund vision, blending grassroots flair with the fertility of commerce, a soldier and refiner of democracy. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, took over and built assiduously on the vision and earned on this page the epaulette of the governor, for example. The Jonathan years impacted Lagos. Nowhere was it more potent than the election that brought Alpha Governor Akinwumi Ambode to the throne. At the polls, ethnic hate halved the city as no time in the past 50 years. The vote tilted for peace. With a one Lagos vision of groundbreaking infrastructure work, Ambode has soothed wounds and subdued tribe and faith, emphasizing one people and levitating the city to its cultural vitality. Our embraces are more important than our raises. Our kind places second when we are kind. As Lagos marks 50, it looks with faith to another 50 without fifth columnists, but a single march of one people. Poet Lord Alfred Lord Tennyson calls it one equal temper of heroic hearts. And that is the song for Lagos.
President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to London for medical follow-up. He also transmitted a letter to the National Assembly informing them of his trip. But one curious aspect of the letter that stirred controversy is where it was stated that Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will coordinate the affairs of government while the president is away, in accordance with Section 145, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
I wish to inform the Honorable House that I will be away for a scheduled medical follow-up with my doctors in London. Length of my stay will be determined by the doctor's advice. While I'm away, the Vice President will coordinate the activities of the government.
Unlike previous letters President Buhari transmitted to the National Assembly saying Professor Oshibajo will be acting president, some Nigerians are uncomfortable with the language or semantics in the president's letter.
Well, that was an interesting development during the week. Talk about contradiction and talk about the fury and flurry of language. There we was. What is the meaning of coordinator? And why will you say the vice president will coordinate when you already know that by referring to the section of the Constitution is automatically acting president? So it's a matter of language, and is it a Freudian slip on the pages of the paper? Those are things that we all will worry about over a while. Is it that some people want him to remain subordinate, even as acting president? That's why I used the word coordinator. Was the president even aware of the meaning of these words? Did he write it? Was he more alert the last time he wrote it and made it very clear that he will be acting president? And not as alert this time. So somebody wrote it, maybe a cabal, who wanted to sneak in the fact that Oshibajo may not be given the real powers to act as acting president. Well, the National Assembly resolved it all and said, well, the Constitution supervenes everything. So, whether we would like it or not, the law takes its course and Oshibajo is acting president.
82 more Chibok girls have been freed from captivity. It is reported that Boko Haram agreed to swap the girls with some of their high-profile members in detention. The return of these girls was cheering news for their parents, who have waited for more than 3 years to see their daughters again. It is also an achievement for the Bring Back Our Girls group and other groups in the country that stayed consistent in their advocacy to pile pressure on the government to secure the release of the girls.
Some questions have arisen over this issue. Some people have said, these girls look more robust than the 21. And that some people are beginning to ask questions, what happened? Maybe they were well taken care of by their captors, what is called the Stockholm Syndrome, when the victim bonds with the kidnapper. But again, we are told that 5 commanders at least were swapped for these people. I hope our DSS and other security and military agencies monitor these people, that they don't do more havoc to us when they get free than the havoc they created with the kidnapping of these girls. And some people have said maybe these girls were not even kidnapped and that they were looking very well. Well, new reports have now shown that some of them need serious surgery. So we should not be too mischievous about what happened. These girls were abducted and they went through what they went through. The horrors can only be explained by those people who went through it, even if they find their words to do so. But we congratulate the federal government for getting these girls out, and we are waiting for the remaining 103, I think 103 more girls who are still in captivity. We heard that some of them don't want to come, and that is what I describe as the Stockholm Syndrome. Somebody kidnaps you and oppresses you, and you love him or her all the same, even for that very reason. Okay, next and final news mention.
Thankfully, the 2017 appropriation bill have been passed by the National Assembly. The long wait for the start of a new fiscal year has ended. From 7.28 trillion naira proposed by the President, the National Assembly raised the 2017 budget to 7.44 trillion naira. Another interesting angle in the budget passage is the disclosure of the National Assembly's budget. 125 billion naira. We now know how much it costs to take care of our lawmakers.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation a total sum of 7,441,175,486,758 naira only. Another first we've achieved is making the budget of the National Assembly available to the public, which has been an issue for a long time.
The budget awaits the president's assent, and hopefully this time there will be a better implementation of the budget.
Hopefully, the acting president will sign off on this budget and things can get rolling. This is May. It was disgraceful that we had to wait this long to pass a budget. Nothing happens in a country where budgets are passed halfway through the year. In other words, what happens is that we are living in the past. We are living in the past year's budget, and new things, new ideas, and new excitements are supposed to reflect the spending in the new year. We are still in the old, antiquated ideas of 2016. Well, another good revelation here was that the National Assembly was able to say, well, we're spending 125 billion. 125 billion to keep our lawmakers? No wonder they don't have any ideas. They're just about how to fleece the country. No wonder some people said the National Assembly is not even useful to us. Let us have people who have real jobs. Let them become lawmakers and do this job part-time. I think with this revelation of how much they spend, we now know how well we are going to tackle them and make sure that they are accountable to the people who own this country. Earlier in the week, I caught up with political economist Pat Utomi, and we talked about Nigeria's economy, Biafra agitation, and other burning issues in the polity.
Very often, we trade power for purpose. When power dominates purpose, performance suffers. And that's why Nigeria has been crippled.
Now, in everything happening in the polity, there is certainly room for comic relief. We have two sketches today. Both are on President Buhari's health and Nigeria's health care system. And both of them are by the same culprit, who's turning to become Nigeria's best cartoonist, Asukwo of Business Day. And one of them is President Buhari in his bed, and the card says, "Get well soon, Mr. President," from the National Coordinator Cartoon Affairs, which is a spoof of President Buhari's letter to the Senate saying that Vice President Oshibajo would coordinate the affairs of government while he was away. It's a very interesting tongue-in-cheek one, and it's lying in bed. The drawing is really the drawing is really beautiful. The strokes are bold and stark relief. The second one is also very interesting, related to President Buhari's health. It's President Buhari's jet taking off from a dilapidated, broken hospital, which represents Nigeria's healthcare system. Beside it is a cemetery with so many people dead. And then the plane carts away dollars, bag of dollars, on top of the plane and flies away. So while the president is spending a lot of our money to take care of himself, the Nigerian system of healthcare is broken. This is also a very modern attack on our healthcare system, and our leadership shows a disconnect between how they take care of themselves and how they take care of the rest of us. Here is in the mirror. There are many security agencies in Nigeria performing different tasks, many of which overlap or are in clear contradiction to their original functions. The reality of the function overlaps are conflicts. Nigerians are seeing drawn-out confrontations between the police and the military, just as such conflicts have played out between the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Department of State Security Services. Each agency has its culture, operating procedures, budget, career progression, mission, and rules. It stands therefore to reason that there will be challenges with regard to cooperation and coordination. A prime example is the Eagle Square bomb blast of October the 1st, 2010. While police consider the attack on an infringement on public order and therefore its responsibility, the DSS saw it as national security issue. Recall also, when forces of the Nigerian army carried out an operation that led to the arrest of the late Boko Haram leader Muhammad Yusuf, their fiasco in the handling of that case by the police in Maiduguri is cited as a reason why inter-security cooperation is almost non-existent. Want more examples? There is the Senate's rejection of Ibrahim Magu as acting EFCC chairman based on a DSS report. Why? Well, the DSS accused Magu of corruption and lacking the integrity needed for the anti-corruption war. Magu hit back at the DSS, saying it lacked credibility, that is, the DSS lacked credibility as an institution. These two agencies also clashed over the DSS raid on judges' homes last October. While the EFCC called the alleged offenses financial crimes, the DSS insisted the crimes constituted a threat to national security. To be sure, rivalry between security agencies is not unique to Nigeria. Cases of interagency views and lack of coordination have also been reported in societies like the United States. The war between the FBI and the CIA is common knowledge, with many Americans linking the feuds to security lapses that caused President John Kennedy's assassination, the Watergate scandal, and the 9/11 attack. Interagency rivalry is not healthy. Jurisdictional fog will not only cause lack of cooperation, but also limit information sharing. And in all cases, it erodes the agencies of popular support and respect. Interagency cooperation should be a matter of mutual trust and mutual respect, translated in local parlance as "you scratch my back, I scratch your back." Nigeria's peace is pivotal to Africa, and these superiority struggles must be addressed. For a bit of odd news, would you drink beer recycled from urine? Well, a brewery in Denmark is drawing on 50,000 liters of urine collected from the largest music festival in Northern Europe. It intends to produce a novelty beer aimed at the more adventurous drinker. The beer, named Pilsner, which is a wordplay combining Pilsner with local slang for urine, contains no human waste. It is produced from fields of malting barley fertilized with human urine, rather than traditional animal manure or factory-made plant nutrients.
The reason why we make this Pilsner beer is because we are a craft brewery out of Copenhagen, and about 4 years ago we converted into organic. So all our beers are organic today, and we thought it would be a great idea also to go into recyclable beer. So we want to test our brewers and to test our opportunities to make a recyclable beer. So yes, that's why.
The thoughts behind the beer was, of course, or the name of the beer was to kind of set focus on that the barley has been fertilized with pea. So instead of a traditional Pilsner, we just removed the L and called it a Pilsner instead.
Denmark's Agriculture and Food Council, which came up with the idea, said using human waste as fertilizer on such a scale is a novelty, and it has already named the concept beer cycling. The 50,000 liters collected from that festival resulted in enough malting barley to brew around 60,000 bottles of Pilsner beer. Now, next is the big talk. Welcome, viewers. I have with me on Big Talk today a special guest, Professor Pat Utomi, who is a veteran of so many things: politics, economics, culture. You're welcome to this show, sir.
Great pleasure to join you.
Well, I want to start by your own assessment of the state of the nation now.
State of the nation. Well, first of all, I think that very sadly for me, the country has come to something I had for years talked about as an unfortunate point we will get to if we did not reform the Nigerian state. For many years, I have reflected on the phenomenon of state capture and the fact that in the last 50 years, Nigeria has more or less suffered state capture in a sense that a group of individuals have really held the Nigerian state captive. And in that phenomenon, the transposing of personal authority over institutions leads to a level of arbitrariness and impunity that often suffers the common good trauma. You don't know where the group of individuals who have established state capture, where their interest begins and the interest or well-being of the Nigerian people ends. And so we have had this phenomenon where our institutions have been so damaged that people wake up in the morning and they're wondering, what will we hear next? How did this happen? I basically like to make the point that if you look at the team of capture, as I like to call the class of 66, who have really determined our fortunes for 50 years,
Yes.
I split them up into three groups. A group I call the modernizer wannabes. A certain group in that class that would like the intervention to be a modernization of the Nigerian state. However, unfortunately for us, their value frame is such that they act often to sabotage even their own efforts. So the modernizer wannabes have never quite progressed the agenda of modernizing Nigeria. So they look over their heads, they see what the Suhartos have managed to live in Indonesia, in spite of everything you can say about Suharto. They look at what the Parks have left in South Korea, but they have not managed to make it happen in Nigeria because they self-sabotage.
Can you elaborate on this? Will you give examples?
It can be very obvious. I mean, it's not the best to, sometimes name names. Yeah. But if you take the Babangida administration, yes, it was a classic modernizer wannabe. Yeah. Best cabinet you can think of, very bright people, but the values continued to literally sabotage their own efforts. Yes. Second category is the group that I call the narcissistic influencers. That group within the class of 66 is dominated by self-interest. Sometimes self-interest in terms of, I want to be relevant, I am the man, so everything that happens, if my say-so doesn't come, the world depends on me.
And if it doesn't happen, I pull everything
down. Amongst them, there are those who, I don't really care how Nigeria is governed, who governs Nigeria, just make sure I get oil wells, appoint ministers, as the second group of narcissistic influencers. Yes. And the third group is the entitlement-minded Praetorian Guards. These guys feel, we saved Nigeria, we fought a civil war to save Nigeria. We are the elite of the class of 66, and so we're entitled to ruling Nigeria. Whether we have an idea what we want to do with Nigeria or not doesn't matter, but it's our entitlement. And sometimes the nature of the competition between the various groups in the class of 66 has determined our fortunes, and very often we trade power for purpose. When power dominates purpose, performance suffers. And that's why Nigeria has been crippled.
It is very interesting that you made these three categorizations, and you have not mentioned the habitual Nigerian fall guys of tribe and faith. And it is very interesting that you have not made those categories.
Excuses that those people use.
Yes.
If it is convenient for them, they run back to the tribe. But if it is not, they deal with friends, their cronies, their partners, and it doesn't matter what their ethnicity is or what their religion is. And my favorite example in pointing to this is, look, the fellows who have dominated the class of 66 are predominantly Northern in their origin. So they've dominated Nigeria for 50 years. The North remains the poorest, the most miserable part of Nigeria. If they were people driven by ethnicity, the North will not be as poor as it is. Their bagmen, their partners, are usually Southerners. And they share the money as conveniently as they want it. Yes. So ethnicity is a phantom
platform.
Yes.
that's very interesting. And we're looking at it as normatively as you have done. What has our colonial heritage got to do with all of this?
We had plenty to do with it. First of all, if you look at the way that the colonial administration moved towards its terminal point, there was a determination to exert post-colonial influence. And that affected how the British played the Nigerian game, both in terms of the census outcomes, such that people they favor will appear to be dominant, and in terms of even
the recruitment of the ruling class.
Yes. And even the military.
Yes.
The military was very interestingly structured from get-go. And if you look at how people were brought into, I can tell you for nothing that the Sardauna was very deliberate in going to Barawa College and those kinds of places and encouraging boys to join the army. They saw the future. They saw what the army was going to do in Nigeria's history. And so the colonial intervention, Britain played a role in the way Nigeria emerged at independence, and even in the way the Civil War played out.
And then even the military itself is an offshoot of the West African Frontier Force, yes, which was predatory by nature. So the military that took over became predatory by nature.
That is the point of my assessment of the class of 66.
It's the Praetorian Guard.
Yes. Because you see, why the class of 66 has not been able to make Nigeria make progress, it's a very simple thing. The class of 66 has as a dominant defining cultural orientation the mindsets, general mindsets that dominate. You can have a farmer mindset or you can have a hunter mindset. A hunter shoots down game, bushmeat, and brings his friends to share and eat. Yes. And they exclude. Excluding is central to their way. Don't come out. We're not here when we hunted down this game.
So those who are privy to this,
let's come and eat. In fact, nobody has defined it as brilliantly as one Chief Afolabi, who was in Obasanjo's cabinet, who said of Chief Igebola Ige, when he was brought into the cabinet, look at the person we asked to come and eat. Yes, so the whole mindset of government is a place to eat. Whereas nation builders have a farmer mindset. You sow, you water, and you harvest. Now,
there's a rigor to that and a patience.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Which the hunter
yes,
does not have. So because the Praetorian Guards of the class of 66 essentially have a hunter mindset, it has been impossible for Nigeria to make progress because Nigeria has been defined as a place to divide and chop.
So it was there was no surprise, therefore, that we had the Civil War. Yeah. That the nation itself had to, at one time, come to terms with its own lie and then come to Civil War. Now that brings me to the story of Kanu. You and a few other prominent people came out and stood for him at one point. And some people saw it as the Igbo elite endorsement of the Biafra project.
It was simply a statement about the appropriateness of institutions following the rule of law and going out of the frame of arbitrariness. Yeah. Because if we just simply follow the rule of law, okay, you are in court, you get granted bail. If you are qualified for bail, you get tried. But that was being abused, and he was being held outside of. Nothing does more damage to any civilization than arbitrariness. We thought it was important to point to the fact that the rule of law, property rights, and those kinds of institutional frames are responsible for sustained superior performance of any culture.
They should be sacrosanct.
Yeah.
No, but even in spite of that, why was it that in a setting like that we have now, where the government was supposed to institute a new way of looking at things, that we've had accusations of impunity, not only in the Kanu case, in that of Sambo, in that of Elza Zaki. There have been stories like that, that itself is in contradiction with the whole concept of a renewed society.
Absolutely, because of culture. Culture is such a powerful thing. There's a huge argument about what is more important for human progress, culture or institutions. I believe that institutions and culture are both equally important for progress. As someone like the Peruvian economist Hernando de Soto, who's written the lovely book, The Mystery of Capital, argues that culture does not matter. What is critical for progress are institutions. Yes. I disagreed with him. On the other side...
He also said land does not matter.
Well, a couple of things that you argue, yes. You can disagree with Fernando de Soto on.
Yes.
But a couple of years ago, there was a colloquium at Harvard that was based on the whole idea of how values shape human progress. Indeed, a book titled Culture Matters, edited by Lawrence Harrison, and the late Samuel P. Huntington Jr. came out of that colloquium. And the central part of that colloquium is that values shape human progress. So who's right? Hernando de Soto on institutions? My thesis is that there is a college of factors that are interdependent that decide whether people make progress or not. Culture is very critical and central to it. Institutions, very, very important to that process. Of course, my framework, which I call the growth drivers framework, includes policy choice. The kind of policy choices that you make matter, they make a difference. Human capital matters. Entrepreneurship, creative destruction, they're very, very, very significant.
It's competent.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you have leadership, yes. Because leaders set the tone of culture. Yes. So what has happened with the class of 66, with the kind of people who have dominated Nigeria for 50 years, is that culturally, they do not believe in institutions. That weakness in their cultural disposition is what makes for this continued return to arbitrariness.
But some people say, well, might be referring to the whole concept of of feudalism. But feudalism itself is institutional.
Absolutely.
What it is that it's not a modern institution. That feudalism only believes in a few militarily and politically powerful people dominating. So do they not feel a sense of disconnect with people who say, no, don't say that we don't believe in institution. Actually, what we do is a respect. It's a respect of institution. The institution says that when somebody is in authority, you have to respect and obey.
But the central argument around institutions is that institutions change, yes, and they evolve. Of course, one of the most brilliant discussions of that subject is the one offered by Douglas North, who went on to win a Nobel Prize in economics for that work. His 1990 book, Institutions, Institutional Change and Economic Performance, makes the point that institutions must evolve continually and the factors that lead to the evolution of institutions. So to say that a feudal arrangement is an institutional arrangement that must...
It's anachronistic.
Absolutely.
No, the point is that what it means is that our leaders and the class of citizens you're talking about, they have not grown from the feudal mindset, and we are not living in a modernized state.
Absolutely, because they have refused to learn. You know, central to how we adapt to a changing world is learning. In a discipline that I'm active in doing some research and writing around called organizational learning. There's an axiom, it's called Rewan's axiom. And Rewan's axiom states that unless the rate of learning in an organization is equal to or greater than the pace of change in the environment, that organization is becoming progressively a dinosaur. And the Nigerian state has become a dinosaur.
But we have been a dinosaur for a long time. So that is why a person like Kanu could be kept in where he was.
And his value increased.
His value increased just by default.
Yes!
Now the question is, he has been set free. And the freedom reminds me of what Rousseau said. The man was born free, and everywhere he finds himself in chains. So you set him free, and you say, you cannot say this, you cannot say that. What kind of freedom is that?
Oh, well, I think that the system is struggling to adapt to a world order in which it is really an anachronistic play. And so they know that the world needs to see something different, and they don't know how to act in that world, so they do things that are patchy. And
now, going back to your group who stood up for Kanu, some people have argued that, well, it shows a subtle endorsement of the whole Biafra syndrome. What is the relationship between, for instance, the Igbo elite and the Kanus in terms of the agitations on the streets?
The agitations on the street, the role of the Kanus actually constitute a metaphor for something that is Nigeria writ large right now. There's an interesting choice of title for a book that Chibok put out not long ago. We are all Biafrans now. Essentially, there is a democratization of discontent in Nigeria. Look at the Northeast, there's discontent about the Nigerian project. You look at Southern Kaduna, discontent. You look at North Central in general, because of their troubles with herdsmen, there's discontent about the Nigeria project. You look at the South. I mean, I spent most of my time working on the South project. Undeads, which we founded, Tony Oranta was my secretary in that initiative, was all about discontent in the South with the Nigeria project. And even in the Southwest, you look at the OPC issues, you look at there's discontent with the Nigeria project. When you have this democratization of discontent,
also democratization of rage.
Rage, absolutely. What it shows is a complete and total failure of leadership.
It goes back to institutions. But some people have also said that, going to the issue of Biafra, that some people have said these people who are asking for Biafra, they are not really at bottom asking for Biafra. That what they are asking for is
Justice,
a part.
a fair state.
Yeah,
A state that works for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. At the heart of anybody, let's be very frank between you and I think it takes foolishness in the modern state to want to be a smaller part of
a big pie.
Big pie. Just be a small. Why do you want? My view of a Nigeria that works is one that by accretion ultimately absorbs Benin Republic and gradually absorbs Togo, absorbs Ghana. I'd like to see West Africa as a nation state. So to then begin to go into fission instead of accretion as a mode is under thinking, if you will.
This dinosaur mindset, how has it played into the projection into the public space of the health of the president?
Wow. I think that it's very sad that we have to watch history repeat itself so very soon. If we are driven by a certain sense of our common heritage and that public life, governance is about advance of the common good of all, then individuals become really secondary in their consideration to the project as such. Rather, it is what is the goal, what is the common good. Secondly, institutional play should require some rigorous following of established ways that things should be done. Now, we came to a head on that score when the Yaradua challenge faced us. It was very clear to me from get-go that what was at play was not what was good for Nigeria, not what was good for even the PDP. It was what was good for the cronies around power.
Yes.
Not even what was good for the man, Yaradua himself. He was a hostage, completely hostage. I had a good, it's a very incredible experience. I had a good encounter with Yaradua himself. One Friday afternoon, or day, one Friday, because I spent a lot of time with him, just before the worst part of that thing happened. I recall that I arrived, he had asked that we meet, I arrived to the office. David Adevie was his principal.
Okay, Adevie,
yeah. At the time, and he was having a meeting with the economic team, and he came out of the meeting and came to see me and said, oh, look, I want our conversation to be really long. Do you mind if I, then first go to the mosque, come back, and then we'll go to the quarters and have a conversation? I said, no, not at all. Then he finished the meeting. I went to the house, residence, and he went, said his prayers, came back. There were 2 or 3 people still waiting for him. Michael Andoaka was the very last to leave.
Okay.
He left just after the NMPC managing director at the time, who was Yaradua also.
Yeah.
And we sat down and began to talk. I feel sad for Nigeria that Yaradua took as badly ill, because he could have
done a lot.
He could have done a lot. Because sitting with him, he said to me, Professor, many people say few people understand Nigeria as well as you do. What is the problem with Nigeria? It's a terrible question to ask somebody like me. I go off into a 2-hour lecture on the troubles, and he was listening very patiently. He didn't fall asleep. He did not. When I finished, he said, that's precisely the point. How many people understand Nigeria the way you have just explained it? So why don't we work together, come into the government and less? And I said to him, it's not as easy as that. And I told him about the state in post-colonial Africa, the cooperative state that incorporates voice and just, I said, I don't want to be a victim of it being incorporated.
Yes.
But I am a patriot. You can call me at 6 a.m., you can call me at 2 a.m., anytime. You have the benefit of my view on anything. I said, oh, that's not enough. You can make more impact inside and all of that. And I said to him, but the problem usually is that you don't have a correct team. You have all these contractors who call themselves ministers. You have all kinds of people with other kinds of interests. You need at least a core, 7, 8 people who really are passionate and obsessed with Nigeria being something better than it is. Then those guys can go and be giving contracts while this group with your, you say, hey, okay, so come now so that we find those. I said, okay, you find 7 people and I'll come as the 8th person. He said, okay, well, why don't you find me those 7 people and come with them? The point is, it's a long story, what happened and from then. But he took ill dramatically within 2 weeks of that conversation. And I never got to meet with him again. If those people who held him hostage had not, and if sickness had not come, my sense from that conversation with him that Nigeria could have profited a lot more from his presidency.
Many people have said that one of the problems with Nigeria is almost spiritual, that at the junction of transformation, we have people who have this strength, who have this opportunity to do stuff, and at that moment we get it wrong. We had it at the time of Babangida, we had it at the time of Murtala, we had it at the time of Obasanjo, but somehow those people who have the capacity, the charisma to just by their own power drive things, they find a way becoming, as you said, your first category, that they have a way of eating their own flesh. Yes. And that has been our history. So now that the situation is as it is now with the president, we have a National Assembly that has not passed a budget, and this is May. What is going on?
The problems of Nigeria are very fundamental. Very, very fundamental. I have argued that we need a total overhaul. A buzzword going around is restructure. I don't think that of its nature, the current National Assembly is able to get Nigeria to make progress. Because the very design of it is antithetical to progress. I have argued since 1999 that what Nigeria needs is a citizen legislature that is a part-time National Assembly made up of people who are carrying on their job as citizens profitably and take out time to come and add to how government is better run. One of the important things that people miss in that conversation or in that point that I try to make is not so much just reduction of costs, which is a big issue, but you have people who are connected to Nigeria as citizens. When a man is a farmer, and he takes off from my village in Delta State and heads to the National Assembly, in the making of that law, he is reflecting the problems of farmers. If he's a lawyer in Lagos and he heads to that assembly, he's reflecting what he experiences in the courts and all of that. The people we elect to Abuja are disconnected from the Nigerian people. They move to Abuja and they never move back to where they came from.
The people who vote them don't
even know who they are. if they voted for them at all.
Exactly.
Because I think that a great book to be written, in my opinion, is the fact that Nigeria has never really had elections.
Yeah.
And I go back to, well, interesting that General Bamayi has now written his own book, proves the point that in 1999 there was no election. I was there, Aliko Dangote, Umar Bagana, myself, a couple of us hosted President Jimmy Carter to dinner the night of the elections in 99. And President Carter was tongue-tied. I mean, he didn't know how to explain the fact that what they observed was not an election. Yeah. So he was trying to find polite diplomatic language. But as we're walking away, he and General Colin Powell, they were all together, So we were walking away. Princeton Lyman, Ambassador Lyman, who used to be ambassador here, said to me, turned to me and said, Pat, boy, if the army wanted to play games with this election, they should try very hard. They didn't try hard to cover their tracks. So now Obama has proved it in his book as a player. So when you live in a country where there's a legitimacy crisis of that magnitude, then you have a major problem. So back to National Assembly. National Assembly is disconnected from the Nigerian people, the pain, and to a large extent, it's about me, myself, and I. And that is a tragedy for a country like ours. So there's nothing that happens that shocks me in that sense, because if we had a different motivation, this passionate commitment to the common good, this understanding that the ultimate level of maturity is interdependence. Stephen Covey, any of these people explain to you that, as children, our first stage is dependence. We depend on our parents. Then as teenagers, we are all, trying to assert our independence. And the ultimate state of maturity is interdependence. And what interdependence suggests is that the essence of our humanity is solidarity.
No man is an island.
Absolutely. That we look at the pains and the problems of others and we work differently. You cannot, I keep repeating, interpret history without turning to those great words of the great sociologist of the 20th century, C. Wright Mills, in the Sociological Imagination. Unless you find the grand sweep of history and the intersection with the personal troubles of individuals.
That is psychosocial.
Yeah. So we cannot look at an assembly that cannot even see the troubles, the personal troubles of Nigerians down there, and assume that this is an institution that can work for the people. Evidently, the nature and the character of the institution prevents it from being able to feel the pain of the Nigerian people. And so we have a huge tragedy before us.
Finally, I want us to look at business. Governor Akinwumi Ambode of Lagos once asserted recently that there needs to be a conjuncture between interest rates and the foreign exchange, forex, and that it's creating chaos. And the former central bank governor, Soludo, confirmed it. And the World Bank later also said the same thing. The central bank governor has been trying to pump a lot of money into it. That is one stage. How do we really move from this stage we are now, where we can find a harmony between foreign exchange and interest? Because the interest rates have become chaotic and it's bad for investment.
Well, you see, part of the challenge that I have gleaned in all of this is the failure of aligning fiscal policy with monetary policy. There's a reason why central banks are supposed to be autonomous, so that they can gauge the gap created by the thrust of fiscal policy and adapt monetary policy, so that together things work together onto a productive base and ultimately growth in the economy, ensuring that inflation is kept down. I think that one of the troubles of the last couple of months in Nigeria is that at a point in time we relied almost wholly on the central bank to run economic policy. And central bank could not run fiscal policy and monetary policy at the same time. This has created the kind of aberration that we're struggling to adapt and manage.
Sanusi used to tell me in those days when he was central bank governor that, look, he has no control over infrastructure, over security, over the borders and so on.
Very true. He's not supposed to.
He's not supposed to.
He's supposed to run his own track, and some other people are supposed to take care of that. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get that to happen well, and we're paying the price for it. I think that a really solid national conference that wants to understand why Nigeria is stuck will unearth some of these challenges and enable an elite that wants to build a nation to rethink how it makes progress. Again, I will return to my analysis of the class of '66 and the problems of a culture of exclusion. Part of why Nigeria suffers so badly is that we've not learned anything from a mantra that Mahathir Mohamad adopted off of Lyndon Baines Johnson's irreverent Texan comment. It's better for everybody to be inside the house pissing out than for some people to be outside the house pissing in. Because the house where people are outside pissing in smells. It doesn't work. I just got back from traveling around the United States. I changed flights a couple of times in Atlanta, going east to west and all of that. Each time I changed flights in Atlanta, I ran into so many Nigerians. At a point, it occurred to me, wait a minute, has everybody moved out of Nigeria? Even the staff of the airport. Yeah. Anyway, you know, everybody recognizes you. Yes, yes. I was taking photographs. The reality of an op-ed piece I wrote many years ago that was titled "The Generation That Left Town" hit me. Because of the way the class of '66 has run Nigeria, our finest left town.
Yes, yes. On that note, I say thank you very much for joining us on this show. And it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much. I hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Great pleasure, yeah.
Thank you for being a part of the show today. And join me next week for another edition of the program. And until then, be good.